Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 59 of our Save Your Seat webinars. We are excited to have you guys with us here today. We'll be covering tips and tricks for your SoftPro Standard software in today's episode. We're going to be joined by JoAnn Blackburn. She's an internal trainer here at SoftPro, and she's going to show you and demo some features and tips that you may not know about. That's going to be helpful for you when you're using your software. And we've actually had a few of these tips and tricks episodes earlier in the year. So if you're interested in other tips and tricks after today's episode, you can visit our blog at blog.softprocorp.com to view all the past Saved You a Seat episodes. Today's episode will also be recorded and will be made available on that blog, so you can go back and watch it or share it with colleagues if you'd like. And we also wanted to remind you that we are celebrating SoftPro's 40th anniversary this year. And so we have a few more giveaways going on throughout the year. We're doing monthly drawings for a SoftPro swag bag, swag box, and we also have a Nominate a Colleague giveaway. We'll be choosing one more winner for that in December. So you guys can check out the rest of these giveaways and how we're celebrating at softprocorp.com/40th anniversary. So thank you guys again for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to JoAnn to get started.
Hello, everyone. My name is JoAnn, and we are going to talk about tips and tricks and go over some keystroke shortcuts and just some random items with SoftPro that will make your life easier. I've been working with SoftPro for probably over 30 years, and there are still days that I learn stuff, so it's really cool. So this is one of my favorite sessions, so hopefully it's helpful to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to jot them in the questions category, and we will address them as we see them. All right, let's get started. Okay, so first off, we're just going to talk about some of the function keys, the function key shortcuts. What do they do? How will they help us? And the first one I want to show you is your F1 help. So F1 help is not where it should be. Hold on. F1 help is opening on my other screen, so I'm pulling it over. And this is basically your user guide or your user manual for the program. If you need help on any category, we break it down for you. We have 360 integrations, 1099, Proform, and so on and so on. So there's all these different categories that once you go into them, then it breaks it down even more. What I want to show you today is we have a little cheat sheet for a lot of these function keys that we're going to be talking about. So if you go into F1 Help and go into Proform and Getting Started, you'll see that there's all these different categories. There is a job aid for keyboard shortcuts. So this is one of the tools that's really helpful. So you may want to print it out and save it, or save it to your desktop or whatever for future reference. But this is the first thing I want to show you. So this is F1 Help. If you are looking for a specific topic, you can look in your search engine. You can go and you can, like I said, you can dig into these files deeper, or if you are actually in your program and you're on a specific field and you're just not sure what information that field is looking for, you can click in a specific field and then click F1. And again, it's going to my other screen. It will then pull up the help for that specific field, so you don't have to go digging for it. All right, so that's F1, that's our basics. The next field is F2. And F2 is a function that will clear your entire field, so any red field. So let me go into let me find a screen with some red field in here. So let's say instead of having to delete, backspace or highlight it and delete, any field you click in and hit that has red print, you can hit F2 and it just automatically cleans the field and everything in behind it. All right, we have F6. F6 is a go-to. And what that does is, if you were looking for a specific screen and you're clicking through your different tabs and you're like, where is the loan amount screen or whatever, you can click F6 and it gives you each field like in words, so that it's another way to search. So if I hit L, it'll put it in to alphabetical order. So I'll hit L, it drops it into L's, and I'm looking for my loan amount. So I can just go down here and click on it and it will pull me to my loan amount. So again, that's F6, and that is go to a specific field. All right, let's go to another one. Did you know you have spell check? So let's go to legal description. Any field you click in and click F7, you have spell check. So it looks just like a typical spell check. It's asking me Westview is, it's not in the dictionary, but I'm going to ignore it because I do want Westview. But then I misspelled record, so I'm going to replace it or change it, and you have spell check. Again, any field, click in it, click F7, you got spell check. All right, one of my favorites that a lot of people don't know you have is you have a calculator. So how would you use a calculator? Okay, let's go to our general tab. And how about your deposit? Let's go into deposits. That's a good place for it. Let's say there was 3 or 4 separate deposits, contract deposit. Maybe they had, it was a builder and they were due every 3 months, they had to give you another deposit, or 3 weeks or whatever it is. And we have several of them. So I'm just going to click in the field and I'm going to click F8. So F8 is your calculator. At this point, I can put in my deposits, and then I'm not going to put any spaces or anything. My first deposit was maybe $1,200. I'm going to hit plus. Maybe I have a $250 deposit. I'm going to hit plus again, a $4,500, and I'll do one more, $750. I just click OK, and it will give me the sum of all those numbers. So you have a calculator. This is good like on messenger fees. I know when you're doing maybe a CD or HUD and you have several messenger fees, you can go directly, on the HUD and click that F8 and add them all in there as well. All right, next one is probably one that most of you are familiar with, and that is the lookup table, and that's F9. So F9 is always your function key for your lookup table. So whenever you have a lookup table available, which the lookup table is like a little address book within sections, you would click in the field, click F9, and it's going to pull in, open up your address book or your lookup table. Now, there are lookup tables available in many, many sections within the program. Sometimes they say lender lookup, so it will say a lookup code, and there's a lookup table there. But sometimes it doesn't say lookup table, but there is a lookup table available. So how do we know? Well, if we click in the field and look down at the bottom right-hand side, you'll see that it says LKUP for lookup. That means there is in fact a lookup table available there. So in this instance, you have a loan officer. Maybe you have, 8 loan officers that you work with at BB&T, and you want to add them to a lookup table here. Well, I can click in that field, and it doesn't say there's a lookup table, but if you look down here, LKUP. So there is a lookup table available there. The only other thing I want to mention about lookup tables is each section has its own individual lookup table. They do not share lookup tables with one exception, and that is your listing agent and your selling agent. Those two sections both share the same lookup table. All right, so now we're going to get into some control function keys. So you can hit at any time, you can hit Control S, and it saves it. You also have the ability to save up here in the little disk, but Control S is if you're a keyboard person versus a mouse person, some of these would be helpful for you. All right, the next one is Control D. Let me show you. So we're going to go to our notes. So I'm going to go into the General tab, and under number 3, there is a notes section. I'm just going to give you examples of these next 3 in this section. Kind of give you a double whammy on what it does as well. So the notes section is the one place in the program that you can use however you want. You can put whatever you want. Some companies use it, some don't use it at all. everybody uses it a little differently. Well, just know that one of the function that I like, if you're going to put notes in here, is if you hit Control D, you can date stamp it. It automatically, anywhere in the program, in any field, Control D will date stamp it, today's date. You can hit Control T and it time stamps it, or Control U will user stamp it. So I can, if I want all of those, maybe I want to put a note in here, and any note entry I put in here, I want a date, time, and user stamp it. I can hit Control A for all, and it will do all of the above, and then I can put my note in. Maybe I sent out commitment, or maybe I can come back here 2 days later and I want to put another note in here. So I'm going to hit Control A that day and then put my next note in here. Maybe, let's see, selling agent bringing termite to closing. Whatever. Like I said, you can use it however you want, but it's just a really, those keystroke shortcuts are a really cool function for this section. All right. Now we have copy and paste. So Control C copies and Control V as in Victor pastes. So if I just want to like highlight these, Control C, come down here, Control V, and it copies and pastes it. You can copy and paste legal descriptions. You can copy and paste whatever you want. It doesn't have to be within one of these fields, but that's, when you're doing your legal description, that's a good function for doing your legal. And actually, let's move to legal because I want to show you something, and I'll show you how to copy and paste. Let's go to your legal description because we want to look at this scrollable field. So there's several sections that have, you can see there's one here, all these with the arrows, these scrollable fields. You can copy and paste your legal description if you have it in a Word document, or if maybe the abstractor has emailed you the title and you want to copy and paste. But you also, because this is like a small, what does it give you, like 6 lines to see? Maybe you want to expand this. So when you're in a scrollable field like this and you click in that field, you can hit Control Z as in zebra, and it expands the field. So then you can copy and paste. Maybe you have a 2-page meets and bounds description. You can then copy and paste in here and see it all. You also can spell check from within here. You also can write to or read from text. So what this means is maybe I want to go and read from, would be able to click on it and it would take it out. Maybe I have a legal description saved on my desktop. I could just click on this and pull it in and pull in the legal that way. Or to write to would be, I want to save this legal description. I could click this and it would take me out and open a new document and I could save that. So, but the scrollable fields as Control Z expands it. I'm going to hit OK. The only other control key buttons I want to talk about is Control N. Again, this is for someone who is more of a keyboard person. And if you hit Control N, actually, let me get out of here first. You can open a new file. So it's just like going file a new or going to your new little icon here. But if that's your keyboard stroke, shortcut is Control N to open a new file. And then Control P will open your ReadyDocs so you can print. All right. So that's everything that we have on the function keys. Again, if you go into F1, this is just like a small portion of what we have. Again, go into F1 help and you can print out the keyboard shortcut, little cheat sheet thing. All right, now let's see what we have next. One of the items that we talked about, order notes and how to use that. Okay, let's go into marketing source. So marketing source is a really cool function. The only thing with marketing source is that you have to have, let me get to it, I can't talk and think at the same time. Okay, so we have a little button here, marketing source, and this only, this is a function if you're running order tracking. So if you have order tracking, so I won't spend a lot of time because I know some people don't, but it's a really cool function. And what marketing source does is you can keep track of where your business is coming from. So I can click on that little marketing source and there is a drop down and it says, hey, where did this business come from? Maybe you have an established relationship with a real estate agent or maybe a lender or whatever, whoever. And it's a great way to keep track of for marketing purposes. So I'm going to say that maybe the first lender, which was my relationship with BB&T, one of the employees there, they sent it to me. You know, I have a relationship with one of the loan officers, so they send it to me. So I'm going to keep track of this. So as soon as I put first lender, it automatically, as long as I have all their information in this order, it's going to pull in all the information I have. It also, if you look down here, it pulls in, it says settlement agent income amount. It keeps track of the income from each one of these sources. So it's really cool. So what this does is it totals all of the dollars paid to the settlement agent in this transaction. So you may have a settlement fee and a closing fee and a doc review fee all payable to the settlement agent. It will combine all those fees, whatever's payable to the settlement agent, and it'll pull it onto this amount. So then once you have this, you have reports that you can run. Now, the only thing with this is if you're using this, you have to be consistent. If you want, an accurate report, you would have to always put in your marketing source, and then under reports, there is a report to run for marketing source, and it will give you a list of each source. It may, BB&T, Bank of America, whoever your marketing source, and the total income for that period. You can run it for the month, for the year, whatever. Anyway, again, that is a function that only works if you're running order tracking. Just wanted to let you know. All right, let's move on to the next one. Let's go to the funding screen. So we are going to go loan and funding. Okay, a couple things I want to go over here would be your funding, loan and funding amount, gross funding versus net funding. So what the system does is you're going to put the principal amount of the loan here, and it automatically will put, if I hit gross funding, it automatically pulls down that amount into the funding amount, meaning that the loan amount is $235,555, and because it's gross funded, the lender is going to send you that full amount. If you click net funding, the lender is going to subtract any fees that's being paid to them and then automatically fill in the amount of the funding amount here. You just need to, this is a really good tool to double check your funding, to double check the funding amount once the lender, provides you with that. And if it should match this number, and this is a good, like I said, good way to make sure that your file is balancing and you have all the fees correctly, because if the lender gives you their funding amount and it doesn't match what the system is saying, there's either something missing or you put in a wrong DS code. But it's always a great double check before closing. I would always jump back here and make sure that my funding amounts match. So difference between net and gross. The other thing on this screen that's really cool is if the buyer brought too much to closing. So, a lot of times the buyer will call you and say, hey, I need to get a certified check, or hey, I need to wire funds. How much do I need? And you don't know yet. Maybe you're still waiting on the fees from the lender. So you give them your high estimate. Well, in this scenario, if you look down at the bottom left, I'm going to put a little circle on it. If you see the bottom left of my screen, there's always a running total of the accounting system for this file. And right now it says from my buyer, I need $368,866. So I'm like, you know what? I know I have a few more fees. I'm going to tell them just to bring $375. Well, if they bring too much, go ahead and put the dollar amount that they bring you here. What will happen is the system will automatically calculate their refund, and then it will go ahead and put a line item. Let me show you the file balance sheet. So it automatically posts that as a receivable for $375, but it also excess cash to close. It calculates their refund and puts it as a pending disbursement here. So you don't have to sit there with a calculator at closing trying to figure out what their refund is and then manually adding in additional checks or wires or disbursements. So again, that is on our loan funding screen. And that is if the buyer brought too much to closing. Again, it's only if they bring too much to closing. You don't need to put anything. If they bring the exact amount, you don't need to put anything in here. All right, what else can we go into? Let's go into interest. So you know how the lender will give you instructions on the interest, and your number does not match their number by 1 cent or 2 cents or 10 cents or what, and you're like, okay, why am I always off? Well, there is a little drop down here per diem number of decimal digits. What this means is I can go in the drop down. Every lender may calculate a little differently. They may calculate it 2 digits past the decimal. The next closing you do may have 4 digits past the decimal point. So I always would go in here and try to match this number before I manually override it. If you're not matching to the penny, notice how every time I change this, so you can change how many digits past the decimal that the lender is calculating to try to match up your number. Like again, I said, I always try to do this first because you can, if you manually override it, it's like hard coding it so that, like, let's say the settlement date gets changed, it's not going to automatically update then. You're going to have to then go back and manually change it because you've overridden it and it's going to hard code it. So that's just know that that little option is there. All right, now we're going to go into an attachments folder. This is one of my favorite things. So up here, all these little icons across the top, there is something that looks like a little scanner, and this is an attachments folder. And when I click on it, it opens it up. And what this is every single closing file has its own individual attachments folder. So you can save this attachments folder. You can save anything you want in here. So let me give you an example of some of the things and how to save them in there. So you may want to save, I wouldn't save everything that you print, like, every CD, because, a lot of times we have like 12 versions of it, or you can save your most recent version and then always update it. If you update it, you could do that. You can save maybe your final title policies in here and your commitments and your final CDs that are fully signed, or I have customers that use this as storage, and after closing they scan the entire closing package and put it in here. You can save emails in here. You can save pictures. You can save any type of document in here. So let me show you different ways of saving stuff. It's pretty cool. So first thing, the most basic is, let's say you open it up, I can go in here and go File and Print to Attachments. So then I'm going to get my available ReadyDocs, and I can put whatever I want and just stick it over into my attachments. Whatever I put, it's automatically, because I did it as Save to Attachments, it's automatically click the little box for you and it's saving it, and I just pulled it over there. I'm going to hit OK. Oh, I got to give it, sorry, I didn't give it a file name. Give it a file name, so I'm just going to call it barcode, and I'm going to hit OK. And I was successful, and now if I go back in there, you'll see now that I have a barcode in there. Okay, you also can save stuff to attachments as you're printing stuff. So if I were to go and just, let me go into print. Notice that I also have this option here. So I can print something and also say, in addition to printing it, save it to attachments, give it a name, hit OK. So if you're printing or not printing, you can do that either way. The other thing you can do is you can drag and drop stuff in there. So let's say, let me minimize this a little bit. And let's say, hold on, I'm going to close this file out. All right, let's see, I minimize, it's not cooperating with me. I can minimize both of these. I'm not doing well with this minimizing stuff here. I can drag and drop any file in here. Okay, well, I can take emails and just drag and drop in anything that, because I'm getting a weird background because I'm in the webinar. That's why I'm not able to get my background screen opened. Anyway, what you would do is, if there's something on your specific desktop, if you just drag it and drop it into any of this white area, it'll automatically put it into your attachments folder. You also can do that. You can minimize this and then open up your Outlook and minimize it, and you can drag and drop emails in there. The email thing's a really cool function because, I mean, how many times you've done a closing and there's been some type of issue and there's all kinds of emails going back and forth and you're like, I need to save this because this could come back and haunt me a year from now. Like I know somebody's going to call on it or something. You can take the latest email chain with all the different emails on it and you can just drag it and drop it and keep those emails there. So that's one of my favorite functions. I love the attachments folder. All right, now let's talk about, let me minimize all this, your user ReadyDocs tree. Not sure how many are using this, but what this basically is this is a favorites folder. So everybody has the ability to use this favorites folder. Now remember, if you have more than one user in your office, this is available for as long as you're not a standalone. If you're on a server together and everything, everybody can share the same favorites folder or user ReadyDocs tree. So what I done in setting mine up is I have given each user in my office, so I had JoAnn, Kathy, Megan, and Jim, I gave each one of them their own folder because everyone may have different favorites. If someone's doing pre-closing versus post-closing, maybe someone does just policies, so their favorites are just going to be, title policies. So I've created a new folder for everybody in my office, and then when you click and open that folder, then I have, like in my specific file, I have a purchase, and I also have a refi, and I also have a cash. So let me show you how to create a user within your user ReadyDocs tree. So you want to go into Tools, and you want to go into your ReadyDocs Manager because these are your ReadyDocs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this user ReadyDocs tree, and let's say I have a new person in my office and they want their own user ReadyDocs tree. Now remember, everybody has access to it, but it's just easier to have your own. Okay, so let's say I have John is new. I'm going to highlight the user ReadyDocs tree and I'm going to insert a new folder. And I'm going to say it's John's. Now, from there, John, obviously there's no plus, there's nothing in there yet, so he doesn't have that plus to expand. We can go in there and we can do subfolders with John. Maybe John wants to do a subfolder for, I'm going to insert a new folder, maybe one for purchase. And maybe John also does refis. So I'm going to highlight his name again and insert a second folder. So you can do subfolders, and I'm going to do refi. So from here, what I can do is I can go and find any files that I want to put. Maybe I always want to do a name affidavit. John does them in every purchase file. So I'm going to take that name affidavit and drag it into his purchase folder. Maybe he uses a tax form. So let me go find a tax form, and maybe I'm going to drag that in his purchase folder. The other cool thing about being able to do this is, you know how when you're going to print your CDs and you have the pages of 2A and 2B, and so you can't just like click the one thing when you go to print or something, you can set it up in here that you're only putting in pages 1 through 5, or maybe you just do pages 2 and 3 all the time. You can put in whatever you want. Set it up however you want, whatever makes sense to you, but it's a really cool function. So now, once I have it all set up, let's talk about using it. So I'm going to say, okay. So now when I go and I want to print something, I can go into my user ReadyDocs tree, and John just wants to print everything in his purchase. Maybe he has 10 files, 10 different documents there. He can take that and do the whole file, or he can do one at a time or whatever, but he can pull the whole thing over and you can print the whole thing all at once. So if you have every document that you use for purchase, it's one click. You're not out there clicking 77 times to try to find it. You know how like in some of these underwriters, they have, several different versions of a commitment, and you always are using that same one and you're always digging for it. Put that one commitment in your folder and then you don't have to go digging for it every time. Anyway, so that's how a user ReadyDocs is built and used. All right, let me cancel out of this. All right, we've talked about lookup tables. Okay, let me make sure on balancing a file, because now we're going to go to the CD tab. Let's go here. Okay, are you all taking advantage of the additional title charges screen? All right, so the additional title charges, what this is a screen that's exclusively used for any title related fee. And it needs to be paid to either the settlement agent or the underwriter. So we can use this screen to list up to 20 descriptions in here, and we basically can put them in as placeholders in our template. So I would set these up in your template, and then as long as there's no dollar value listed, like this is closing fees, the only one that has a dollar value. So this is the only one that's going to pull to my CD. So it's a real time saver. So let me show you where it puts this on. Right now, all I have is a closing fee. So I'm going to go over and take a look at my CD. And as you can see, it pulls it here. Oh, I pulled it up there, but it automatically pulls to section C. I actually moved it there. That's not another benefit. But let's go back, and I'm going to show you. So this was the only one out of all those that had a dollar value in it, so it pulled it to my CD. It also, the nice thing about doing it here is that automatically, you don't have to put them in alphabetical order. You don't have to put the word title and dash in front of it. It automatically, by putting it in this section, it automatically will fill that in, put the title dash and alphabetize it. So let's go in here and let's put a couple of fees in here. So I'm going to show you. Once I put some fees in these, it then pulls all of these that I have fees in them will pull to my CD, but I also have this more button. The more button, when you click that, is where you're going to tell it to either pay it to the underwriter or the agent. And is it 100% to the agent, or is the split like, your other fees with the underwriter? So you have a lot of options here on how this gets paid. But again, this is something I would set up in my template. You do it once, and then it makes your life so much easier. Instead of typing directly onto the CD, you put any title related fee. So now let's go back and let's look at our page 2. So now you'll see that it put title, dash, and it put them all in alphabetical order. And it puts them automatically defaults to C. But a lot of times you'll send your CD to the lender, and the lender will look at it and say, you know what, I want the commitment fee and the notary fee in section B. So typically, if you put it on your CD, you're going to have to delete it and re-put it up in the section where they want you to put it. Well, by doing it this way, I can go directly back to those additional title charges, and I would click on more because the closing fee was one of them. Oh, that's the one I already did. The commitment fee was one of them. Commitment fee was one of them. So now you'll see it right now it's going to section C, line 1. I want it to go to section B. So I'm going to say, you know what, go to the next available line in section B. And then maybe it was the doc review fee was the other one. I'm going to click on more. And again, put it to the next available line in section B. Notice that you can put it in any section that you want from here. You don't have to retype it. So but this is probably one of the most common, is the lender will say to move it up to section B. So now I've done that. And when I go back and look, it has now moved them up to section B. And it, again, still has that title dash in front of it, and it alphabetizes them. So that is the perk of using additional title charges.
JoAnn,
yes.
we have a quick question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Someone asked if there is a box to enter the assessed value of the property and for the system to know which to calculate recording costs by.
If there is an assessment, say it again.
Is there a box to enter the assessed value of the property?
That may have to be set up specific for your state and county. Is it for taxes? Is that what it's for like transfer taxes?
They mentioned some counties record based on the higher value.
Yeah. So those formulas should be installed when they install for your specific state or jurisdiction. So yeah, it should know where to look.
Okay.
If it's one of those counties, absolutely. But yeah,
it'll be specific to someone's instance.
Yeah, so if it's not doing it now, reach out to our support department and they will get your most recent updates installed, and it should automatically be doing that.
Perfect. Thanks, JoAnn.
Sure thing. All right, let's see. Next thing on here is file balance. So you ever get stuck and you're trying to figure out, why am I out of balance? So look down here, and remember I mentioned down at the bottom left, there is always a running total of your file balance. This says that I'm out of balance. Your balance should always say 0. And if it doesn't, it means your file is out of balance. So it looks like I'm out of balance by $245. So there is under your CDF tab, there is a screen here. It says file balance information. Sometimes this is very helpful, the screen. Sometimes it's not helpful at all, but I always go here first. Sometimes it might just say, hey, you're off balance. And you're like, I know that. But in this instance, it's going to give me a hint. So it tells me here that the total incoming funds less the disbursements produces a balance. Okay. And then it goes on to tell me that the following CDF lines contain single-sided credits, and it tells me where to go. So it's telling me section L, line 8 is where it's causing me to be off balance. So it takes me directly there. So whenever you're off balance, always look at this screen first. So what I did is, and this is one of the reasons that a lot of times you're out of balance, is you are not either you're forgetting like a DS code, or in this instance, what I did is I put a credit without a debit, or a debit without a credit, one or the other. So you'll see here, it told me to go to section L, line 8, and I put an HOA dues adjustment or debit credit, but I forgot to put it over on this side. So as soon as, notice I'm out by 245, as soon as I go over here and say also put it in section N, so now it puts it over here, and now I'm in balance. So that is a really, really good tool if you're out of balance. Now, if that is not helpful and you still can't figure it out, then I would hope that everybody's using this. If not, there is this file balance sheet that is under escrow and closings. And if you're doing a CD, it's the first one here. And if you're doing a HUD, it's the first sheet there. And notice that you have it available in legal size or letter size. And this is where I would go through here if you're out of balance, because it'll tell me it's out of balance, and then you can kind of look at this and start comparing to what you have from the lender and everything. So those are the two ways I would really work to try to figure out why I'm out of balance. All right, let's see what else we have. We did that, file balance, we've done that. Oh, okay, one of the things, you ever get a notification when you go to, like, maybe you're trying to do your CD on a letter size document, but it's telling you it's too long and it keeps pushing it to an additional page, or it says you have to print out, 2B or 3B or something. Did you know that you can go and you can make your document shorter? Maybe you have a whole lot of entries here, but you don't have many entries here. So you have all these open available lines. You can highlight a line, hit delete, hit yes, and you can delete lines to make your documents shorter to fit on like a letter size or whatever you're trying to maneuver it to do. You can go into any section and delete it. And just like deleting, you can add rows as well. You can click add a row and add additional rows, but just know you can delete lines to make it fit onto, like, we have all these available lines. I could go and delete all these lines and it would make it that much shorter. All right, we're moving on. Okay, so just so you know, there are under CDF and also under HUD, there are options. So I can hit CDF options, and just know that you have some options here. And the one that I want to look at is the very first one, charge by buyer for day of closings on all prorations. So if you're ever, I know I have, some people have said, I'm always one day off. I never match the lenders. I'm never like whatever. Well, the reason being is because some states charge the buyer for the day of closing when you're doing a proration, and some charge the seller. So this is an option where you can choose whether or not it's the buyer or the seller that is responsible for the date of closing. Again, I would go into my template, set it once, and you wouldn't have to set it again. But if you're one of those people who are constantly having to change dates and you're not sure why, all you do is, if you're charging the buyer, you click this, and it will change that proration from 1 day, or uncheck it and charge the seller. You have other options here in the CDF, but that's the one that I think is really helpful. And then there's the other one is just like preferences, basically. If you want an out of balance notice instantly, you can click that. Some of these, some people like them, some people they're burdensome because they come up too often. So whatever your preference is, you can do that. But the only other thing here I want to show you is that there is a if you're doing a refinance and you need to switch over to the refinance HUD one or CD, or there is right here this option. It's not letting me click it because I have sellers' names and everything in here. But if it was I would go in under my refinance template. If you have one, click this, it automatically will switch it over to the refinance document or CD. All right. Everything else is just options that you can look at if you want signature pages. I guess this one's kind of cool too. If you ever had a disbursement summary page, I showed you that this file balance sheet here. If you've ever, I know you don't do it all the time, but you can put signature lines on it. So maybe you have a specific transaction and you are dispersing, maybe the seller says, can you cut a check half of this to, I want to pay off my credit card, Chase or whatever, and it's not on the HUD one or the CD. So you want them to sign off on it so that if somebody gets audited, they know why you did what you did. You can have them, you can click this little box and put a signature line on your disbursement summary page and print it out. Okay, so that's what that option is. So that one you might use. All right, the next two items I want to show you is on a HUD one. So there's a couple items on the HUD one that are pretty cool. Let me open a HUD real quick. I think I have one here. Okay, so ever do a 1031 exchange? If you've ever done one, you know that you have to pull all the proceeds from the 1031. They want a bottom line on the seller side, and then usually the whole proceeds has to go to a specific intermediary or whatever. Well, let's take a look at and see. There is 517. Okay, reduction in amount to due seller. There is a little box on line 517 that says divert all proceeds to this line. So let me show you real quick. Let's take a look at the HUD one, and then we'll divert it and show you. Pretty cool. So I, in the past, have done 1031 exchanges and had to sit there and calculate. Well, hold on, I can't talk and think at the same time. Hold on a second. Let me get my settlement statement. So let's look at this real quick. So they want, this has to be zeroed out on a 1031 exchange. And I've had to like type in, 1031 exchange funds and put 298 there. And then all of a sudden there's a change made. And then I have something going there again. And then I have to recalculate it. Well, did you know that you can go directly to 517, line 517, and click this little box that's saying divert all seller proceeds to this line. You can title it whatever you want, 1031 exchange funds, and make it payable to, John Smith, Esquire, or whoever it goes to. And now when we go back and look at it, it is zeroed out and it's pulling all funds to that line. Pretty cool. The other thing on HUD one, I only have one other thing I want to show you on the HUD one, is under options. You have all kinds of options down here for where you can put your signature line. If you want to add some type of a certification on the bottom of the HUD one, on page 2, page 3, there's some of these have restrictions saying that it's only for HUD one and large print HUD ones, maybe only for legal size documents. But just know the way it's set up is not set in stone. You have a lot of flexibility with the HUD one on where you want signature lines and everything. Do you want, the buyer and seller to sign page 1, but then the settlement agent to sign page 3 with some type of certification? You type in that certification and whatever. Anyway, just wanted you to know you have all those options there. All right, final section, title insurance. What kind of neat little things. So one of the things with title insurance that I don't know if you've ever realized is, hold on a second here. Okay, under title insurance options, when you go to print a title commitment or title policy, do you ever have issues with the numbering? Maybe you have, every underwriter's documents are a little different. So you may have like 5 standard exceptions automatically in First American's documents, but then maybe you have 3 standard exceptions if you're working with more than one underwriter under Fidelity's documents. And so when you go to print it, it's automatically, the numbering is off. Well, this is where you can fix the numbering. This here is, you're telling them under the requirements or the exceptions, this is for the commitment. I want to start numbering on, maybe there's 5 standards, so I want it to start numbering on page 6 under requirements, and maybe there's 3 under exceptions, so I want it to start numbering on number 4. So and same thing with the loan and the owner's policies under exceptions. You can change this. So if you're one of those people who are constantly fighting with the numbering, this is where you do it. Again, this is something that you could go into your template and change it in your template so you don't have to ever do that again. Okay. And then the last thing I want to show you is actually here as well. And you have a option here for using the legal description either as an attachment to these documents or to show up on Schedule A. If it's unchecked and it's a short legal description, you can have it automatically just show up on Schedule A. Let me find a schedule. Oh, I'm in a HUD, sorry. Schedule A of your document, either a commitment or a policy, or you can click this and tell it to use this as an attachment, and it'll automatically put an Exhibit A to the end, at the end of your commitment or policy, and always put that as an attachment, and on the front on Schedule A, it'll say see attached Schedule A or Exhibit A or whatever it's called. And that is, I think, everything that I have.
Awesome. Thanks so much, JoAnn.
You're welcome.
We do not have any questions other than the one that we already answered earlier in the webinar, but if anybody on the webinar thinks of a question afterwards, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to answer it. As a reminder, today's episode was recorded. It will be available on our blog likely tomorrow. So you can visit blog.softprocorp.com to view today's recording or any past recordings. We'll also send out an email to everyone who registered for today's webinar once that recording is available. We will have likely one more Saved You a Seat webinar taking place in December. So we'll email out information about that webinar once it becomes available. But other than that, I think that covers it for today. So thanks everybody for joining us, and thank you, JoAnn, for going over those tips and tricks.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, bye-bye.